It is brutal. Look at what is happening to Tesla stock right here. Over the past month, it's down by more than 11%. And just yesterday, it was down by more than 5% in one day. So really, what is happening for the Tesla stock and their shareholders? Let's explore that in today's video. So make sure you smash the like button and enjoy our video. So we will be discussing Tesla's Q1 2026 results, their production, and their deliveries, and what that really means for the Tesla shareholders. And should you be selling your stock, or should you buy the stock if you have not yet done so? Let's discuss that in today's episode. So, first of all, we know that I will be just showing the highlighter right here, and I will show you the results on Tesla's IR or Investor Relations website. So let's look at Tesla's Q1 2026 production, deliveries, and deployment. So as you can see, it was released on April 2nd, 2026, and as you can see right here, the production was 408,000 vehicles, specifically 394,000 for Model 3 and Y, and their deliveries were 358,000 vehicles. Now, if you really compare that to what analysts were expecting, this is what we mention right here. So basically what was happening is that analysts were expecting 368,000 Tesla vehicles to be delivered. So 368 on average. We have different analysts, and each of those analysts are giving different numbers. However, the average is 368, while in reality what they got is 358. That's for the deliveries. However, if you guys know me as an investor, I always understand and why things are happening, and I always focus on the fundamentals. Now, here for Tesla, the fundamentals are the production. It's not the deliveries, okay? If we look at the deliveries, they were 408,000 vehicles for Q1 2026. Really, this is not a bad number, as bad as, you know, the reaction to the Tesla results were. Because people were saying, you know, the results are kind of 6 to 7%, or sorry, 2 to 3% shorter than what we expected, those analysts. However, if you look at the production, it's better than that. So if we compare this number, 408,000 vehicles produced for Q1 2026, for this is Q1 2025. If we compare that, it was 362,000 vehicles produced as compared to 408,000. So as you can see right here, that is an increase, ladies and gentlemen, of more than 9%, more than 7%. If we also compare that to Q4 2025, we can see in Q4 they produced 434,000 vehicles as compared to currently 408,000 vehicles. Now, we all know because of the business of Tesla and because of the business of selling cars, we always appreciate that in Q4 the production and the deliveries are way higher as compared to the beginning of the year, which is Q1. So just because of the cyclicality, we always expect Q1 to be worse or not as good as Q4. So that is kind of expected, 434 for Q4 as compared to 408. However, again, if we look at the last year, it was 362,000. So that is some increase right here. Now, if we remember to go back to the number of Tesla vehicles delivered worldwide from Q1 2026 all the way into 2025. Now, as you can see right here, overall, all the way into 2023, the graph was going in the very right direction. So Tesla's vehicles overall, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, you can see that it was kind of upgoing in the right direction. However, unfortunately, as of the 2023, when the sales peaked, since then it's been going down. Now, what is expected for 2026? Now, if we look at the numbers, if we actually look at the numbers right here, so for 2025, Q1 was 336,000, as you can see in this blue number right here. Now we have 408,000. Now, of course, unfortunately, they are showing you the deliveries. So let's just stick with the deliveries just for comparison's sake right here. Although I always tend to focus on the production, because Tesla is really able to sell most of the cars that are produced. Overall, they have a very low days in inventory number right there if we compare them to other conventional car makers. So anyway, we go back now. We have 336. Ours was 358. Now, if we compare that to, let's say, Q1 2024, they had 386. and now we have 358. So kind of if you think about it, we're between 2024 and 2025. That is for Q1. If we assume it is the Q2, Q3, Q4 are as good as the same comparative year, then more or less we're expecting to be between 2025 and 2024. So basically, we're expecting for 2026 to kind of start going back up in the right direction. We expect 2026 to go maybe 1,750,000. That's my expectations for the base case, okay? Now, what is expected for 2026 in reality, in my personal opinion, actually that's for the bear case. What we expect for the base case for 2026 is that you have some vehicles you got some vehicles that are increased. So for example, you have Cybertruck, although they are selling less than 10,000 Cybertrucks per year, of course. So that is some small number that you can add right here for 2026 as compared to 2024. And maybe we have the Cybercab vehicle that is something that is a game changer, in my personal opinion, if they really go for that. Now, will they really be able to deliver on the Cybercab in 2026 or not? Time will tell. However, I personally believe the number for 2026 will be around, my base case scenario will be around 1,800,000. So maybe probably between 2023 and 2024 numbers. So definitely better than 2025. However, not as good as the peak of 2023, and definitely not as good as what is expected from Tesla with a price to earnings ratio of 335. Because with a price with a PE ratio of 335, you expect the company to be really making a lot of profits and a lot of growth. However, this is not really the reality for Tesla so far over the past 2 years when it comes really only to the number of vehicles sold worldwide. However, if we go on to think and consider the other numbers for the energy storage deployment, now we can see from Sawyer Merritt on X.com. This guy really, he's one of the best guys that can really post important details on the company that are really kind of, one of the first to be reporting those. So now we have Tesla energy storage deployments, megawatts per hour. And as you can see right here, this is from 2019. You can see 2019 was literally nothing. Okay, if we really compare that now to what is really happening, overall, we can see that the trend is in the right direction. Now, we have Q1 2026. The exact numbers are reported right here. So they deployed 8.8 gigawatts of energy storage as compared to 10.4 in the prior year. However, we know that the energy business is really cyclical for Tesla, the same as the vehicles, but even way more cyclical. So for vehicles, we expect Q2 to be better than Q1, Q3 to be better than Q2, and then Q4 to be even better than Q3, Q2, and Q1. However, for the energy business, it's not always like that. Although overall the trend is better at the end of the year, however, it really depends on the offers that they make with these different companies and the different projects that they get. So it's always cyclical because each project really drives the numbers way up or way down. So this is a cyclical part right here, although overall the trend is in the right direction, as we can see right here. So if we look at what is really kind of the response to what happened to Tesla right here, that's a down 5%. Although I don't think it is as bad as those investors and those analysts are saying. Overall, Tesla is really in a tough situation right now because I believe that they really have many things that they have to prove before investors and analysts kind of trust them back again, and for the share price to go back up in the right direction. Now, if we see right here, really what is happening is Tesla is shifting focus away from the highly profitable business, which is the automotive business, which was highly profitable, of course. What I mean by that is that if we look at, for example, let's look at Tesla stockanalysis.com. And if we go to the website right here, we go to the financials, we can see that their revenues is growing in the right direction, although it again peaked in 2023, 2024. And as you can see, the revenue is not growing as much after that time because of the vehicles. However, energy is really kind of making up for that. So We know that the gross profit margins for those vehicles reached more than 20%. However, now it's back to around 8% as far as I guess for Q1 2026. So that is kind of something that is kind of hurting the business in this way. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is plans for new chip manufacturing and infrastructure imply heavy capital expenditure, which is one of the things that Tesla is really working on. And now there's also the robotaxi thing that we have talked about in our previous video. Now, we know that Tesla's robotaxi is different from Waymo, whereby you have for Tesla, you have this camera-based system as compared to Waymo's LiDAR-based system. And if you guys remember in the last video that I talked about, whereby I was telling you the advantages that I believe for Waymo are as compared to the advantage for Tesla, and then I concluded that maybe it's not going to be just one player that is winning the market for the robotaxi right there. I believe two players will be winning the market, although one will be more than the other. I personally believe that will be Tesla. However, time will tell, but that is what I firmly believe for Tesla. In my personal opinion, and that is the number of cities that are kind of where you have the Tesla robotaxi right there. So finally, just one last thing that I wanted to mention right here is Tesla's at a crossing point. This is what is kind of driving mostly the stock to be down for Tesla in 2026 and 2025. Really, they are at a crossing point. So if we look at those crossing points, so for example, first we have the auto growth plateau, so the automotive business. So the core automotive business has reached its plateau, as we saw in 2023. Market saturation and rising competition suggest growth are behind the auto division, although I don't really believe this is 100% true, because competition is really rising in China, that's for sure. However, market saturation, that is only because Tesla is only producing Model 3 and Model Y. If they produce newer versions, I believe that they will be able to kind of get back on their feet and start kind of having a growth in their deliveries and production for 2026 and 2027. As for energy storage, which is the second pillar, energy division is now the primary focus for the immediate growth. That is something nice that they're having right there. Then we also have the unconventional autopilot as compared to Waymo and Zoox, who have these LiDAR-based systems as compared to camera-based system for Tesla. And then Optimus and the computing bet. This is something that is really important for Tesla shareholders to be really looking at. But Tesla is really planning its own dedicated chip division to ensure vertical integration, lower prices, higher utility, and faster production. And then finally, critical failure risk is something that we always have to keep in mind. The transition relies on unproven business models. For example, the camera-based system is they are the unconventional company that are going for this pathway. Although I believe that, since Tesla really started with the electric vehicles, what they did initially is that with the EVs, they were almost the first player to do so, and everybody was doubting really Tesla and the management, as who will be really buying these EVs that are so expensive? Nobody's gonna do that. And then, as you can see right here, more than 90% of the sales in a country in Europe, I believe it was Netherlands. Yeah, exactly. It was Netherlands. More than 90% of the sales of the vehicles are EVs right now. In China, more than 15 or 20% of the new vehicles that are sold in China are all EVs. So that is really critical numbers and critical improvement that we can see right there. So we will see, time will tell about the camera-based system versus the LiDAR and their kind of push towards these humanoid robots. Only time will tell. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Will Tesla's stock will continue this downward trend that it has been seeing over the past, over the past 2 months, where it was down from the peak of 25%? Or will the stock go back up again as in March 2025 and increase by more than 60 or 70%? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in our next video.